Hello, this is Jocelyn from Jocelyn Crafts. Welcome back to my Corona crafting series. For episode 5, I will show you how to make this easy wrap bracelet. It is a fun and simple project that is great for adults or kids. For your supplies, you're going to need some easy to remove tape, like masking tape or Scotch tape, and scissors. Don't use a hard to remove tape like duct tape or packing tape. That would be bad. You will need cording such as waxed string, thin ribbon, embroidery floss, yarn, something that is good cording for jewelry. You will need beads with large holes such as pony beads or wooden beads. This is much trickier to do with small beads. Use large beads. As a tip, if you use embroidery floss or yarn, you can wrap a very small piece of masking tape or painter's tape around the end of it to make it a lot easier to thread through beads. Okay, I chose to use this blue waxed string for my cording. And what you need to do is you need to cut 2 lengths of cord or string equal to and they have to be equal in length, and they have to be 2 to 2.5 feet longer than you want the length of your finished bracelet to be. You want extra room to work with. It's better to have too much than too little. You want to leave a tail of 8 to 10 inches and then tape it down to the table with the tail on one side of the tape and the long length of your strings on the other side of the tape. So as you can see here, I have the long length in my hands with the tail taped down. Now is when you want to start choosing your beads to put together a pattern. You could do them random or you could do them in a pattern. You put the right hand string through one side of the bead, and you put the left hand string through the opposite side of the bead. So you're wrapping the 2 strings in opposite directions through that bead hole. That's why you need beads with large holes, because you're wrapping 2 lengths of cord through each bead hole. And you just have to pull them tight, and it'll pull it right down to where it's taped. Then grab the second bead you want in the pattern. And we are going to repeat that same process. You take the cord or string that is now on your right hand side, stick it in one hole of the bead, and stick the left hand cord or string in the opposite hole of the bead. Then pull both through until that bead tightens up right next to your first bead. And you're going to keep repeating this same process all the way through. As you pull the beads tight, especially for the first few, you're going to have to wiggle them around a little and re-tighten and readjust some of the beads that have already been done to make sure that they're nice and snug against one another. But once you've got quite a few on, it just starts to pull together more nicely. So see here, I'm going to have to readjust that first bead, make sure that they're all nice and snug against each other before I keep going. And this process just keeps going for the whole length of the bracelet. You stick the right hand cord in one hole, the left hand cord in the other hole, pull it all snug and make sure that everything is tightened nicely and laying the way you want it to lay, and just keep on going. You can watch my progress here. And eventually I do reposition the tape to make it easier. As it gets longer, you might find that you also want to reposition your tape on your table and just find whatever position works best for you. But just keep on following whatever pattern you have set. And you can probably see why this is easier with large beads. You can use a thicker cord and getting both cords through the bead works. If you really want to use smaller beads, it should be an adults only project, because little fingers will just lose those little beads so fast. And if you do want to do this with smaller beads, you can, but I would recommend getting a beading needle. I don't have one to demonstrate to you, but there are these long, skinny needles that are flexible, and you'll have to use a very thin cord and a beading needle on each of your 2 cords. So you'll have one beading needle on one cord and one on the other, and you'll have to use those to thread one bead at a time. So it would take a really long time if you have beads that have small holes. It's not impossible. It's just a more time-consuming project that would be more for adult crafters because they have more patience and more dexterity. But as you can see, even a kid could do these big beads, no problemo. So yeah, just test out the length as you go. That would get me a double wrap, but I wanted a triple wrap, so I kept on going. So again, not quite a triple wrap there. So I add a few more beads before I finish. Okay, I've got my triple wrap. So once you get to your desired length, you tie a square knot. Hopefully you know how to tie a square knot. I am not teaching you how to do that here. Okay, you want to do a series of several more square knots. You don't want them to just lump up in a big ball. You want to pull them flat. Make sure you sort of pinch them so that they stack on top of one another to make a length of square knots. You want to do enough square knots to be 1 inch to 1.5 inches of length here. You don't have 3 cords to braid. If there was 3, I would have you braid them, but since you've just got 2, square knots will do the trick. Okay, once you've got that little knotted cord, as long as you want, you thread one more bead, the same as you did the others. You stick the left hand string in one hole, the right hand string in the opposite hole, and pull it tight. But this time, you're going to wrap the cords back over the top to go through one more time. So wrap the right hand one around to go in the opposite hole and come back out where it started. And then wrap the left hand one across the top to go in the opposite hole and then come back out where it started. This is going to add a little bulk to the bead and secure it extra tight. So pull that nice and tight. This bead is going to act like your button to secure your bracelet. And finish that off with another square knot. Make sure it all cinches up nice and tight. Then go to the side that was taped down. Okay, I'm grabbing it. Here's the side that was taped down. No, actually, that's the side I just tied the square knot on. Now this is the side that was taped down. I tied my first square knot on it, and you want to tie a few more square knots. You don't have to get this stretch of knots as long. Then you tie an overhand knot where you sort of loop the two sides around each other and leave a loop big enough to be a buttonhole for that button bead that we just tied on to the other end. So I'm just testing that out before I finish tightening up that overhand knot, and yep, it's about the right size. So now I know how big to make my loops. So I'm going to pull that tight one more time, and then I'm going to tie a few more square knots just to place a little more distance in there. I'm doing 2 more square knots, and then I'm going to make another loop secured in place by an overhand knot. So once the square knots are in place, you try to make this loop about the same size as the other loop. And be careful not to pull it too tight too fast, because you want to make sure that loop is the right size before you tighten it up all the way. This is so you can make your bracelet adjustable so that different people can wear it with bigger wrists or smaller wrists, or you can make it long enough so that you could even wear it as a necklace if you want to. So you repeat this process one more time with the square knots, the loop, and the overhand knot. So now, again, you can button it by the time you're done in 3 different loops for 3 different lengths. Just gives you more options on how to wear it. And of course, if you don't want a triple wrap bracelet, if you only want a single wrap bracelet or a double wrap bracelet, just make sure you check the length as you are stringing your beads to make sure that you get the length that you want the most. After your final overhand knot, do 1 more square knot just to make sure everything is nice and secure. Okay. Now this next step is optional, but if you have either jewelry glue or super glue, you can dot all of those square knots in the crucial places and let it dry, and that'll just help make sure that those knots never unravel. It'll keep your bracelet extra secure. But again, if you are good at tying knots and make them nice and tight, this is an optional step. The waxed string does sometimes work its way loose. Yarn or embroidery floss would probably stay more securely on its own. So it just is optional depending on the material you use for your cords. Then trim those extra long loose ends. You don't need them now that the glue is dried. And now you can try on your new bracelet and style it however you like. Kids might need a little help getting this on because, again, they don't have as much dexterity. But I'm going to show you that it's not too tricky to do one-handed, to put it on yourself. You just push that final button bead through one of the loops you made. Wiggle it into the right position and it'll hold. There you go, a fun wrap bracelet. I really like these metallic pony beads that I found. They're lots of fun. I'm going to just demonstrate that buttoning process one more time so you can see exactly why we left those loops and how they work. You just wiggle that bead on through the loop. And it holds just like a button. And there you have it, our quick and easy wrap bracelet. I hope you like this idea, and I hope you have fun making it. Thank you for joining me. on Corona Crafting. Have fun crafting. See you later.